There will be days in your life when the world feels like it's collapsing in on you. Days when you wake up and everything feels heavier than it should. Days when the fear, the uncertainty, the exhaustion all hit you at once. And nobody sees it. Because you've learned to hide it well. You walk outside with a straight face, pretending you're fine. You laugh at the right moments. You nod in the right places. You keep moving because stopping feels dangerous. Stopping means you'd have to face what's really inside. But when the door closes, when the lights go off, and it's just you, your thoughts become louder than anything else in the world. That feeling, the sinking in your stomach, the fear of the future, that quiet panic you can't explain, that is what hopelessness feels like. And if you're feeling it today, I want you to know something important. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not failing. You're human. There's a moment in every person's life when everything seems to go wrong at once. A moment when life hits so hard that you don't even have the strength to get angry. You just go numb. Maybe you got news that shattered you. Maybe you lost someone you loved. Maybe the person you trusted walked out. Maybe you tried everything, but nothing worked. Maybe life pushed you into a corner you never asked to be in. And the worst part? You start thinking, is this it? Is this how my life ends? Not literally, but emotionally? Is this the chapter I never get to crawl out of? But listen to me. Everything in life goes south at some point. Everything falls apart. Everyone gets knocked down. That's not the end, that's the test. Life doesn't ask you whether you're ready. It doesn't give you a heads up. It doesn't wait until you're strong enough. Life hits. And then it watches what you do next. When hopelessness takes over, most people do the same thing. They try to run away from their emotions. They tell themselves, I shouldn't feel this way. This is stupid. I need to be strong. I need to pretend I'm okay. But ignoring your emotions doesn't heal you. It only buries the pain deeper. And pain that is buried always finds a way back out. So the first step, the real first step, is to acknowledge what you feel without judging it. Yes, you're scared. Yes, you're overwhelmed. Yes, you're tired, confused, and hurting. But none of that means you're lost forever. Feelings are not final. They're states, not destinies. What you feel right now is real, but it is also temporary. There is a psychological model called the Kubler-Ross model, the 5 stages of grief. Most people think it's only for those facing death. But the truth is, it applies to every human who has ever gone through heartbreak, failure, loss, rejection, fear, or extreme uncertainty. The model says we cycle through. 1. Denial. This can't be happening. This must be a mistake. 2. Anger. Why me? Why now? This is unfair. 3. Bargaining. If this works out, I'll change. If things go back to normal, I'll be better. 4. Depression. I don't see a way out. What's the point anymore? 5. Acceptance. It's painful, but I can face this. I don't like it, but I can move forward. Nobody moves through the stages in order. Some people move back and forth. Some get stuck for months. Some jump straight from denial to anger. Some stay in depression longer than they want to admit. But here is what matters. Every stage is normal. Every emotion is valid. Every reaction is human. When you understand that your hopelessness is a stage, not a life sentence, you start to breathe again. Speaking of breathing, let's talk about the one thing you still control when everything else feels out of control. Your breath. You don't realize it, but when you're scared, stressed, or overwhelmed, your body reacts before your mind does. Your stomach tightens. Your chest closes. Your hands shake. Your heart races. Your breathing becomes shallow and fast. Your body is telling you, I'm overwhelmed. And the fastest way to reset, to slow down the panic, is to breathe. 3 deep, slow breaths can change everything. Not because breathing fixes your problems, but because it pulls you back into the present moment, where you can actually do something. Every deep breath tells your body, I am safe right now. I can handle this moment. I don't need to run. Hopelessness comes from living in the future, imagining everything that could go wrong. Breathing brings you back to the now, and the now is always survivable. But breathing alone isn't enough. There's another truth you need to hear. When you're hopeless, your emotions are louder than your logic. So don't make big decisions while drowning in emotional noise. Instead, step back. Go quiet. Go somewhere you can think. Disconnect. Give yourself space to breathe. Space to reset. Space to see clearly again. Your emotions are powerful, but they are not always accurate. What feels like the end might only be the middle. What feels unbearable today might become your greatest wisdom tomorrow. What feels impossible now might become your greatest victory later. But you will only see that if you keep going. And here's something most people don't realize. Even when your life feels like it's falling apart, you still have one thing left. Your will. Not motivation, not positivity, not confidence, not hope. Your will. The quiet, stubborn voice inside you that says, I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know what it will take, but I'm not done yet. That voice is still inside you, even if you can barely hear it, even if it's whispering, even if it feels weak. That voice is your lifeline. Grab it, hold it, follow it. Even if you're moving slowly, even if you're crawling. Because hopelessness isn't defeated by strength, it's defeated by persistence. There's something nobody tells you about hopelessness. It doesn't just attack your mind, it goes after your identity. It whispers in your ear, you're not enough. You're failing. You're alone. You'll never get through this. But those aren't facts. They're symptoms. They're echoes of fear, exhaustion, pain, and overwhelm, not reflections of who you truly are. And the moment you understand that, you begin to take your power back. When you're stuck in a dark place, one of the fastest ways to sink even deeper is to isolate yourself. You pull back. You stop talking. You stop asking for help. You stop sharing what you feel. You think you're protecting others from your pain, but the truth is you're slowly drowning in silence. Listen carefully. You do not have to walk through hopelessness alone. You don't have to hide what you feel. You don't have to be the strong one all the time. There is strength in vulnerability. There is power in honesty. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply whisper to someone, I'm not okay. You will be surprised at how many people will step forward, will listen, will care, will hold you up when you can't stand on your own. Humans are not built for isolation. We're built for connection, especially when life breaks us open. So if you're feeling hopeless, don't shut the world out. Let someone in, not even just one person. It might be the lifeline you didn't know you needed. But there's something else. It's something even more powerful. When you feel hopeless, your instinct tells you to freeze, to stop, to conserve energy, to wait for the storm to pass. But waiting rarely saves you. Waiting rarely changes anything. Waiting often keeps you stuck right where the pain is. Action, even small action, is what changes things. And I'm not talking about dramatic, life-changing action. I'm talking about tiny steps. Getting out of bed, drinking a glass of water, opening the window, taking a shower, going for a walk, writing your thoughts down, making one simple decision, fixing one small problem in front of you. You solve one problem, then the next, then the next. That's how momentum starts. That's how hope returns. Not all at once, but moment by moment, action by action. If you can't take a big step today, take a small one. If you can't take a small one, take a slow one. If you can't take a slow one, just breathe and stay alive for one more minute. Survival is progress. And progress, no matter how tiny, is how hopelessness begins to loosen its grip. Our story sucks. Another truth you need to hear. You are still in control of something, even when everything feels out of control. You control your response. You control your mindset. You control your attitude. You control whether you give up or not. And that matters more than you realize. Life will always throw things at you that you can't predict and you can't prevent. But your power isn't in preventing pain. Your power is in deciding how you rise after it. So ask yourself, what can I control today? What can I influence? What can I fix? What can I learn? What can I choose? Even choosing your attitude is a form of strength, especially when that attitude is tested by fear, pain, and uncertainty. But here's something most people never think about. Hopelessness is often a sign that something inside you is ready to change. You outgrew a chapter, a relationship, an environment, a mindset, a version of yourself. But change is uncomfortable. Transformation feels like destruction before it feels like growth. Before a new chapter begins, the old one has to fall apart. Some people call it breakdown, others call it suffering. But in truth, it's evolution. There are moments in life when the universe forces you to stop, forces you to reflect, forces you to question everything, forces you to let go of who you used to be so you can become who you're meant to be. And yes, that process is painful. Yes, it's confusing. Yes, it's overwhelming. But it's also necessary. Because you don't grow in comfort. You grow in discomfort. You grow in uncertainty. You grow in struggle. You grow in the moments you think you can't go on. And you do anyway. Let me tell you something important. Your scars are not signs of weakness. They are proof of strength. A scar means the wound healed. It means you survived. It means you endured something that could have broken you. But it didn't. You have lived through 100% of your worst days. Everything you thought would destroy you became something you learned from. Your heart has been broken, but it still beats. Your spirit has been shaken, but it still stands. Your hope has been buried, but it still breathes. That means there is more inside you than you think. More resilience, more courage, more power. Hopelessness tells you this is the end. But your scars tell you you've made it through darkness before, and you can do it again. And here is a truth people rarely say out loud. You are allowed to fall apart and still become something extraordinary. You can cry and still be strong. You can be afraid and still move forward. You can doubt yourself and still rise. You can feel hopeless and still choose to live. You can break down today and rebuild tomorrow. The strongest people you admire aren't strong because life was easy. They're strong because life tested them. And they passed the test by refusing to quit. They turned pain into power, fear into courage, hopelessness into purpose. And you can too. Not because you're perfect, not because you're fearless, but because deep down there is a part of you that refuses to be defeated, even when everything feels impossible. So if you're listening to this right now and you're thinking, I don't know how to keep going, answer this. Do you need to know how to take the next step, or do you just need to take it? Courage doesn't come before action. Courage comes from action. Hope doesn't appear out of nowhere. Hope grows when you move. You don't need to see the whole path. You just need to take the next step with whatever strength you have left, even if it's small, even if it's slow, even if it's shaky, because slow progress is still progress. And small steps still move you forward. And forward is the direction of hope. There's a moment, a very specific moment, that comes right after hopelessness reaches its peak. It's quiet, it's small, it's almost invisible. But it changes everything. It's the moment you say to yourself, I'm not done yet. Not loudly, not confidently, not dramatically. Sometimes it's barely a whisper. Sometimes you don't even believe it. Sometimes you're saying it while crying, while shaking, while breaking. But that whisper, that fragile decision, that tiny spark of resistance is the turning point. That's where strength begins. You see, people think strength looks like power, like confidence, like victory, like winning. But real strength? The kind that changes lives? The kind that builds warriors? The kind that creates unstoppable people? It looks nothing like that. Real strength is quiet. It's hidden. It's forged in moments when nobody is watching. Moments when you're on the floor, broken, confused, exhausted, and you choose not to give up. Strength is built in the nights you cry yourself to sleep, but still wake up the next morning. Strength is built when you don't know what to do, but you take one more breath anyway. Strength is built when life hits you again and again, and you whisper, okay, one more try. That's the strength nobody sees. That's the strength that changes everything. Hopelessness is not the end of your story. It's the chapter where you discover just how strong you really are. But let me tell you something important. When you feel hopeless, you are standing at the edge of transformation. Not destruction, transformation. The old version of you is breaking. Not because you're weak, but because you're outgrowing it. The habits that used to comfort you no longer fit you. The excuses that used to protect you no longer satisfy you. The people who used to surround you no longer match your future. The dreams you used to settle for no longer match your potential. This pain, this heaviness, this confusion is the pressure that creates growth. You're not falling apart. You're being rebuilt, and rebuilding is noisy. Rebuilding is uncomfortable. Rebuilding is overwhelming, but rebuilding is necessary. The version of you that will rise from this won't just survive. It will be stronger, more focused, more resilient, more alive. You might not see it now, but one day you will look back and realize something powerful. The darkest moments of your life were preparing you for the brightest ones. That heartbreak made you wiser. That failure made you hungrier. That loss made you grateful. That betrayal made you sharper. That hopelessness made you unstoppable. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is the messenger. Pain is the teacher. Pain is the fire that forges the strongest steel. Every scar you have is not a symbol of tragedy. It's proof you survived, proof you healed, proof you kept going. Wear your scars with pride because they are the marks of someone who refused to quit. But hear me clearly. Your life will not change until you decide it will. Not tomorrow, not someday, not when things get better, not when I feel stronger. Your life changes the moment you say, it starts now, even if you're scared. even if you're tired, even if you're uncertain, even if you don't know how. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need motivation. You don't need confidence. All you need is one decision. I'm going to fight for myself. And once you make that decision, something inside you shifts. Your posture changes. Your energy changes. Your focus changes. Your future changes. Because the most powerful force in your life is the moment you choose not to quit. But let's talk about something deeper. Something you may not realize. You were never meant to give up. You were built for this. If you were truly weak, life would have broken you already. If you were truly hopeless, you wouldn't be here listening to these words right now. If you were truly defeated, your heart wouldn't still be fighting for a reason to keep going. People don't search for videos like this when they're done. They search for them when something deep inside is begging them to rise. That voice inside you, the one calling you forward, is not your imagination. It's who you're meant to become. It's your future self pulling you out of the dark. It's the stronger version of you reaching back and saying, "Get up, we're not finished." You don't hear that voice by accident. You hear it because you still have purpose. And maybe right now you can't see that purpose. Maybe nothing makes sense. Maybe you feel lost, directionless, stuck. That's okay. You're not supposed to have all the answers today. You just need to take the next step with whatever strength you have. Maybe that strength is small. Use it anyway. Maybe that step is slow. Take it anyway. Maybe that progress is invisible. Keep going anyway. Because the life you want, the person you want to become, the future you're desperate to reach, none of it disappears just because you're struggling right now. You're allowed to struggle. You're allowed to doubt. You're allowed to fall apart. But you are not allowed to quit on yourself. So here's the truth. This chapter is not your ending. It is your awakening. Not the death of your story, but the birth of your strength. Not the collapse of your future, but the beginning of your transformation. You are growing in ways you cannot see yet. You are developing strength you will need later. You are becoming someone who will rise higher than the person who fell. And one day, not far from now, you will look back at this pain and whisper, "It didn't break me. It built me." Because you were never hopeless. You were healing. You were becoming. You were evolving. And now you rise.